Uh, Most of you know, but for those that you don't, I'm actually from Hawaii and graduated from Rhema, went back to Hawaii, and things were going very well. Church was offering me a position that I really wanted to be in, and it wasn't a paid position yet, but it was about to be, and business started going good. Everything was going good. I'm a newlywed at that time, and life is just awesome. And then God said, we came up in 2007 for camp meeting, and we were in jet at my in-laws' house, and I was packing my bags, and the Lord said, there's going to be change in your life. And immediately I said, Lord, if you call me to be a pastor, I will kill the sheep. Because what I mean by that is there's a difference in an evangelist and a pastor. An evangelist will come in and just preach hard and share the word, and the pastor has to take care of the flock, calm them all down. Why'd that guy say that? Why'd he get all rowdy and this and that? And the pastor is there. It's a different call. And just for some reason, I thought, God's going to call me to be a pastor. I don't want to be a pastor. And the Lord says, no, it's not what I'm going to call you to do. And now I started thinking, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this? What's going to happen? And then I found out that my wife already knew what we were supposed to do. So I said, what are we going to do? And she says, I'm not telling you. You go find out from God. So I went back to the Lord and I said, Lord, if my wife knows, then you should tell me. And it took a few days, and then I realized we're moving. So then we were living with my mom at that time, and I thought it was just location on the same island. I had no idea location was a different state. And I kind of struggled with it because what was going on for us there was what I wanted. And the Lord says, I want you to go to Judges and read chapter 7. So I read Judges chapter 7, and I said, Lord, I don't understand. He says, read it again. So I read it again, and I said, Lord, I still don't understand. He says, keep on reading it. And I read it over and over and over, and then I got it. You ever heard something and thought, that doesn't make sense? And then you hear it again, it doesn't make sense, and all of a sudden the light bulb, when it goes on, it makes sense. You ever been there? Well, this story, let's look in Judges chapter 7. And a lot of times we don't always see the things that God sees. We don't know the things that God knows. But God will reveal things to us and show us things when it's appropriate and it's the right time. Because if God showed you everything in your life right now, we would walk out on Him because it's just too much. How, all of a sudden it's the hows and the whys and what about this, and are you serious? That's going to happen. God doesn't do it that way. And what it was is, well, we'll read the story. In chapter 7, verse 1, it says, Then Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod, so that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, The people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, My own hand has saved me. God never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And He's saying, basically what God is saying is, I want glory, and this is how I want the glory. And He says, there's too many people with you for Israel to get glory. They're going to say, this is what we did. But what's interesting is, in verse 13, in verse 12, I'll read it. It says, Now the Midianites and Amalekites, all the people of the east, were lying in the valley, as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seashore, in multitude. So here Gideon has about 32,000 men, and God is saying, you have too many men against all the locusts and all the camel. There's that many people in that army. So you're outnumbered, but you still have too much people. Isn't that like God? In verse 3, Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, Whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from the Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people return, and 10,000 remain. Now picture this. You're standing there, and you hear God give you an instruction. He says, whoever's afraid, send them home. So Gideon has 32,000 people there, and he says, hey, everybody who's afraid, basically go home. And 22,000 left. 2/3 of his army left. And he's probably thinking, God, are you serious? And then look at what God says in verse 4. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. They're still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue as a dog laps, he shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink. So now God's watching for two things. Who's lapping like a dog and who gets down on their knees. And he's saying, this group you put here and this group you put here. Now, just keep in mind, Gideon just sent home 22,000 people. Well, Gideon spoke something and 22,000 left. So now Gideon is about to see two different groups, okay? In verse number 6, and the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300, but the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. So now you've got 300 in one group and 9,700 in the other. I firmly believe that Gideon probably said, Lord, send home the 300. Because I'd rather have more than not enough. But that's not how God does things. God says, no, send home the 9,700. With the 300, you're going to win. You ever been in that situation where God deals with you on something and all of a sudden it's like you're left with what looks like nothing and miracles take place? You ever been there? Anybody ever been there? And you know that when you read these stories, they're true. And if you think about this, God could take someone that has $1 and does more with a person that has $1 than someone that has $100 million. See, because you can give $100 million not in faith and it doesn't please God, but you can give $1 in faith and it pleases God, and you're going to receive more off of that $1 than you would that 100 million. God is not about numbers, as you can tell in the sense of you need more. God just wants faith. And he wants people of faith. I mean, God is looking for people to say, Lord, here I am, use me. I'll say what you want me to say, I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll go wherever you want me to go. Although it may not make sense. And the reason why I'm sharing this story is God, when I saw it, I realized, wow, God just kind of took him in steps, and God told me, he says, well, then I started asking, what am I going to do for work? What am I going to do for this? And what am I going to do for this? And God says, I didn't give Gideon the next step until he obeyed the first step. See, a lot of times we want everything laid out. So we know we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and it's just all going to work out in our perfect little world. And God says, no, that's not how it works out. It doesn't work out that way with God. God says, this is what I want you to do. And as we say, okay, Lord, I'll do that. And as we do, we start to see the miracles take place, and then he'll reveal the next thing, and then he'll reveal the next thing. And you know, we'll keep on reading. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have a habit of doing that sometimes. In verse 7, but the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who have lapped, I will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hand. Let all the other people go, every man to his place. Notice what God said. God says, by the 300 men who have lapped, I will save you. God said, I'm going to save you. Not you're going to do it yourself. Not what you think you can do is what's going to happen. It's, I will save you with the 300. And see, it's because God says, you've got 32,000. Nah, that's too much. Send this much home. Just whoever's afraid, send them home. And God starts breaking down these numbers all the way to 301, including Gideon. And God says, by the 300, I will save you. But by the 32,000, I'm not going to do it. What do you think that did for Gideon? When he's watching his army diminish because of what God is saying, and then all of a sudden God says, okay, I'm going to save you by these 300. It's a big difference. Because one, it's you're doing it by yourself, and the other is, I got God working with me. And Gideon has no idea that what God is going to do, or he has no idea that God's going to do what he's going to do the way he's going to do it. If we keep on reading in verse 8, so the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands, and they sent away all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, and retained those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. And it happened on the same night that the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. God says, I've delivered it. It's already yours. The battle hasn't even begun. But God says, I've already delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid, go down